Hi, everybody. This is Noelle from Petitti Garden Centers, and we're here outside in our Oakwood Village nursery and perennial area, and we wanted to talk to you about native grasses today. And we grow a lot of different types of ornamental grasses, okay? Many different types. There's a lot that you might be very familiar with that you see out in the landscape, but we're slowly but surely also offering native varieties like the one next to me here. And so these native grasses are starting to gain in popularity. And so we wanted to talk about some of these grasses that maybe you're less familiar with, but would also be a good plant to grow in your garden. So let's talk about native grasses today. And normally when we start kind of a spotlight, I talk about sun requirements and water requirements. But the grasses, for the most part, folks, are just some of the easiest plants to grow in your garden. And we love them because they provide so much texture and color, especially for 3 seasons out of the growing year. So we always say summer, fall, and winter seasons, that's when they look their best. And so we really enjoy that texture and color in the landscape at that time of year, when other things aren't, looking so great. So grasses really do us a service. Plus, they're very deer and rabbit resistant as well. They're extremely low maintenance. We have to put very little inputs into these grasses for them to do well for us out in our gardens and in our landscapes. And they're so adaptable, especially the native varieties. They just, once they're established, they can really tolerate a lot of different weather, a lot of different temperatures, a lot of different soil conditions, anywhere from very good drought tolerance to wet tolerance as well. So there's lots of benefits in growing some of these native grasses and really enjoying them out in your landscape. Let me talk about benefits real quick. And again, this is with a lot of your native plant material, but native grasses especially, soil conservation is one of the best things that they can provide for us. And in soil conservation, your native grasses tend to develop very deep root systems, okay? And so when they do get established, they provide a good source of drainage. And here in Northeast Ohio, when we're not living close to Lake Erie and we're more inland, we have very heavy clay soils, which these grasses can tolerate. And then, of course, as their root system does work their way down into the soil, they can help with that drainage issue. So that's one thing that's really great. The other thing about deep-rooted plants is that they also help reduce soil erosion. So that is a great thing too. And as I mentioned, once you get those roots established, you have better drought tolerance, especially when they're established deeply into the soil. They can find that water that's down deep and they don't have to worry so much about the top growth. The other thing is they can tolerate more periodic wetness, and that kind of moves into our water quality as well. So with deep-rooted native grasses, they are able to filter all of that runoff that moves into our stormwater systems and so forth. So we tend to use native grasses in our rain gardens and so forth, try to help clean some of that water. And of course, when you're placing them in a landscape, kind of in a mass planting or kind of down a perennial border as a backdrop, they do their job wonderfully as that ornamental grass, but they're also helping you filter that water. So that's really great too. Another thing that we love about them is they provide excellent wildlife habitat and also food sources for wildlife. So you're going to see birds pick on their seed heads, no problem whatsoever, all through the time that they're producing their inflorescence and beyond into winter. You'll see that they also provide a lot of shelter for smaller rodents and things. And granted, sometimes we have that love-hate relationship with our smaller rodents in the gardens. But again, it provides that habitat and shelter for them. And again, provides food, provides pollen for insects, provides forage again. So they really are a good thing for our wildlife. And of course, that helps with biodiversity as well. You're planting different types of grasses, flowering plants, native plants, non-native plants. And again, plant diversity is always a really good thing in the ecosystem, okay? It helps support a balanced ecosystem, so that's really good too. Last thing that I wanted to mention about the grasses is that they really, again, because they're natives and they're so adaptable, they help with things that we don't normally think about, like carbon sequestering. So they actually will pull CO2 out of the atmosphere, and they will actually store it down in the root systems into the soil. And you say, well, all plants really, do that with carbon dioxide as they go ahead and they convert it from CO2 to oxygen. And that's true through photosynthesis. But your native grasses, again, because of that deep root system, they do a better job of it. So ultimately, they're helping us reduce the greenhouse gases out there too, okay? So lots of things to think about, but again, wonderful plants. And I forgot to mention another ornamental thing that I love about them is they have great cut flowers. So you can cut these here with this Panicum or Switchgrass. You can cut these flowers, you can dry their inflorescence, and they do a great job in arranging. So it's just another fun purpose for grasses out there. They can be host plants for caterpillars, for butterflies and moths and things, if I haven't mentioned that already. So again, you're going to see a lot of great benefits with using native grasses out in the garden. This one next to me right here is, like I mentioned, a Panicum or a Switchgrass, okay? Panicum virgatum. We grow different varieties of that, cultivated varieties of Panicum. We also have the straight species that I'll show you in a moment. But I just wanted to show you that there are some very tall ornamental native grasses out there. This is called Rostal bush. It does have a beautiful pink to red inflorescence. We call these panicles, like a panicle hydrangea, for example. So they kind of grow in that cluster of seeds, if you will, flowers and seed heads. And then Rostal bush has the benefit of having sort of redder tips. And of course, I have a lot of blue-green foliage right now, and the red is going to start to show more and more as we move into the fall season. There's a little bit showing here and there. Rostal bush is about a 5-foot, tall when it does have its seed heads on native grass, okay? There are other grass-like types of plant material that I'm going to show you here today as well. And we're going to go over this way. And actually, this is a sedge, a native sedge, or what we also refer to as Carex, okay? And we were talking about in botany, the sedges have edges, so they typically do have kind of a very sturdy, strong edge on their foliage. And grasses are pains in the butt when we are talking about sort of trying to identify them and categorize them and so forth. And with sedges, they aren't in the grass family necessarily, but we clump them into that ornamental grass category, if you will. And they are really useful for us. There's a lot of native sedges in Ohio and a lot of native sedges that we grow. And this is actually called fox sedge. And if it had its inflorescence, it blooms a lot earlier in the season. It has these little foxtail inflorescence. But fox sedges and others are available as well for projects. What's interesting about the sedges is that most of your native grasses, your taller native grasses, are going to be at home in very sunny, kind of drier places. So if you think about kind of the native prairie, that type of look, they will do very, very well with things like your coneflowers and your Joe Pye weed and those types of plants, where your sedges are going to be more at home in sort of moist, wooded areas. They're definitely very, very wet tolerant, moisture tolerant out there too, for the most part. And I'll show you a couple that are a little bit more better adapted for sun. But for the most part, your sedges are going to like that shaded, moist area near streams and that type of thing too. And they love to hang out with maybe your fern leaf bleeding heart, your ferns, and those types of plants. So again, lots of native grasses to show you. So let's get on our way. So we're by more Panicum, and Taylor, I think we did a video on Panicum grasses. Have we done a video? She's like, we've done a lot, folks. So we'll just talk about more Panicum or switchgrasses, okay? This is Panicum virgatum. This is the true straight species. These grasses, for the most part, this is what they look like. This is their classic form. They have a very upright form, okay? They stay pretty sturdy. They'll stay in a clump. They do not spread. They kind of grow upright. They have a little bit of an arch on their foliage. And then, of course, those lovely panicled seed heads right above them. What I love about virgatum, the straight species, is that you have this very clean bluish green foliage. It has a texture to it. It's a little bit sharp on the edges with that. And again, that just helps with you will not get any browsing from these grasses or on these grasses at all as far as your larger herbivores are concerned. And the panicles are a beautiful weedy golden color, really, really nice. Most of your Panicum tend to start blooming in late summer and will tarry and hold those panicles into late fall and winter. So it's really, really nice to have just a really pretty, and I think probably one of the better known native grasses out there. Like, people are getting more familiar with the switchgrass or the Panicum varieties. I've got a shorty right here. This is a little bit shorter than it normally is. This is going to be Ruby Ribbons, excuse me. Ruby Ribbons is a Panicum variety. It is on the short side, and I haven't really figured out why, and I'm kind of wondering if the nursery cut these back a little bit late, because sometimes when you cut your grasses, and we'll talk about that right now since we're on the subject, sometimes when the grasses get cut back too late into the growing season in spring, they can get stunted, and so they are really kind of on the short side. So Ruby Ribbons is on the short side right now. It typically grows up to about 3 to 4 foot tall, so it's sort of a medium-sized Panicum. It is starting to produce its panicles, but you can see, look at these deep, dark maroon leaves here through this grass. So this one starts coloring up fairly early and produces a really, really nice color as a deep dark color as we go into the fall season. But talking about cutting grasses back, just so you know, and I was talking about soil conservation before, grasses provide a lot of organic matter that can go back into the soil. And so if you're a composter, that's awesome. You cut your grasses back typically in early March, really anytime the month of March, but we say early March because we don't want to interfere with their growth processes, coming as spring heats up. And so that cutback can really happen at that time. Go ahead, you can tie them up if you want to. You can just hold them with one hand, hold the entire clump, and then go ahead and take pruners and shear them. You can take a weed whacker if that's easier for you and just weed whack through the base if you want to, and try to go as low as you can go to kind of remove all of that old stem. And then they'll go ahead and they'll push right up through. So that's something to keep in mind. This is Rostel bush again. So this is the one I was standing next to, but you can see more of that red foliage is really starting to come out. And you might see that beautiful cloud of kind of pinky red seed heads. So they're really, really pretty. So here we're by the big bluestem grasses. These are Andropogon gerardii. I have 2 varieties here. This one on my right-hand side is called Red October. And this one on my left is called Blackhawks. Red October, obviously you can tell, very deep, rich red stems here going into the inflorescence. Beautiful kind of dark green to blue green to kind of burgundy foliage color down below. Now, The big blue stems are really fun grasses, but I just want you to be aware that it's the inflorescence that make them so tall. So in a landscape planting, I would kind of suggest to put them sort of mid-border. They are tall enough and the foliage will form to about 3 foot tall in the garden, but it's really the inflorescence that come out later season, usually August, where you will see these very, very tall stems. On the ends of the stem, you will see what we call a turkey foot type panicle. And I think I've shown these before in the video, but it has 3 sort of seed heads to it. So we call that a turkey foot. Okay. So sometimes it's called turkey foot grass. You'll hear folks name it that way too. But big blue stem, beautiful dark colors. Red October is going to be the taller of the two, so the inflorescence grow to about 6 foot tall out there in the landscape. This one, Black Hawks, is actually a seedling from Red October, so it was selected from Red October. It's a little bit shorter. You can tell its stature is a little bit smaller. Foliage is that beautiful blue-green with kind of a dark burgundy purple color to it. So it definitely has that sort of deep, dark brooding color. I really, really enjoy this one. Dark stems going into the inflorescence. And again, very, very dark purple, almost black inflorescence on this one as well. But really, again, great grass for the landscape, middle border. Remember, foliage is about 3 foot tall when the foliage starts coming up. And then you get the taller inflorescence out there. Okay, now I'm holding Little Bluestem. Little Bluestem has a very tricky name. It's Schizachyrium scoparium. Isn't that a lovely name? So Little Bluestem, we refer to these very often, and they are lovely little native grasses. I should say smaller stature native grasses. So what you'll find is you'll have clumping grass, probably up to maybe 12, 18 inches tall typically. And then their inflorescence can kind of push up into, let's say, 32, 36 inches. So up to about 3 foot tall. I would say with most of your Little Bluestem, they grow anywhere between 2 and 4 foot tall, about 1.5 to 2 foot wide. So they're not big grasses at all, but they're lovely for that kind of front of the border, around the base of a tree where you can get some good sun right there. These are, I love this one. This is called Brushstrokes. Brushstrokes is a proven winner variety. It does have a lot of color in the foliage. They have some dark green, some blue green, and then there's also some silvery blue, and you're also getting some burgundy red too in here. So it is just beautiful. These little inflorescence that come up, they do look like small paintbrushes, so that's kind of fun with the name Brushstrokes there. And I'll tell you, these grasses go through so many different changes of color from that summer through winter season that they're just really, really beautiful in the landscape. So really enjoy these. Don't cut them down early. And you can cut them down early. I forgot to mention that. You can cut them in the fall if you want to, but there's really a lot to be seen as they go later and later into the winter months. So look for Brushstrokes, okay? Also, I have Twilight Zone here. So you can see Twilight Zone has a little bit more reds in the foliage here and some greens, light blues, again, kind of a silvery blue, and its foliage, its flowering is starting to come up as well. Twilight Zone is going to be about a 2 foot tall grass or so. It's getting there. But again, they love these grasses, true grasses, again, love that drier, sunny, again, think prairie or meadow type environment for them. And they love being in the landscape out with all the other plant material. Now we're back in shade, and I just wanted to show you again a couple of grasses, grass-like species that are not necessarily true grasses, but we clump them into that grass category, that ornamental grass category. The first two that I wanted to show you are both sedges, okay? And remember, I was talking about sedges have edges. And these could not be more different. So this first sedge is actually called Carex plantanesia. Did I say that right? I might have said that wrong. But it's also called plantain sedge, okay? And or seersucker sedge. And Taylor will take a picture of this. But there are these tiny little dimples in this thick foliage, and it's really a cute sedge. It almost looks like a hosta a little bit. These sedges are great, again, in those shady spots. So part shade to shade, moist soils, wetter conditions, not a problem for your sedges. So again, those rain gardens and the part shade to shade, great plants to grow there and really do a nice job for you. More of the grassy one over here to this side, this is your Pennsylvania sage, okay? So Carex pennsylvanica, makes sense, right? But it's also known as oak sedge. And the reason being is that it goes in dry wooded areas. But also, it does really well if it's planted underneath oak trees, okay? So it can really take that dry, and that's a hard condition for us to garden in, that kind of dry, shaded area where the trees are just sucking all of the water, all the moisture you supply, and pulling it away from the plants that you want to get established. But your Pennsylvania sedge, no problem. They can really deal with that. Again, we want to get these plants established first. So we want to make sure we're watering well. Again, 1 inch of water 1 time per week is always great. Get them started. Keep an eye on that water that first growing season. And then after that, they should be ready to go. Okay. The last one that is a grass-like plant here, this is actually juncus, or we call these a rush. So these are soft rushes. And these are also something that you might be familiar with because we put juncus in the middle of some of our combination planters because we like that spiky blue effect that they provide. When they do sort of dry out, they'll turn a little bit yellow through the center. And as they die back for the winter months, they will turn yellow in color. The rush family, again, is not a grass, but it is a grass-like plant that we do enjoy. Blue mohawks here from Proven Winners will get up to about 2 to 3 foot tall. They can produce small kind of starry inflorescence. This one doesn't have it at this time, but they really are just a fun upright accent that you can use in a lot of different places. You can put it in the sun. You can put it in part shade. You can use it as a thriller in a container garden, but it really does like those wetter areas near ponds and so forth. So pond marginal areas, rain gardens, those types of areas. And it'll give you just a really nice, strong, upright habit and texture for those areas. And that's basically grasses in a nutshell. So native grasses, there's a lot of different varieties. I also wanted to mention that purple lovegrass, I wasn't able to show it to you today, but we do grow purple lovegrass, which is called Eragrostis. We also grow a grass called Spirabolus that is really, really wonderful. So all of these native grasses, they really are coming on the scene. They do a great job in the garden. They're very adaptable. Once established, they're drought tolerant. They can tolerate some wet soils. They can tolerate, they have very rare browsing from herbivores, deer and rabbits, of course, we are concerned with usually. They provide habitat for your pollinators and your birds and your smaller rodents. They really do a great job helping us with soil conservation, water quality. My gosh, they pull carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and reduce greenhouse gases for us. They just have so many wonderful benefits that why not try to find a good place to stick some native grasses in your garden. Enjoy.